Hello everyone, and many thanks once again for tuning into another of our Investment Manager videos. The US equity market was the star of 2020, delivering extraordinary returns for investors. However, with the start of the global economies opening up after lockdowns, will 2021 change the fortunes for the US market? Who better to ask than Julian Cook, US equity specialist at T Rowe Price and friend of three counties. But first, before we get into today's video, if you are enjoying the content, it would be wonderful if you could subscribe to the channel. This really does assist us in delivering our financial planning and investment content to a wider audience, and you'll be genuinely helping us all on the channel. So, onto the content. Julian, it's great to see you once again, and many thanks for your time. Kicking things off straight off the bat, for the benefit of those viewers who, unlike ourselves, have a life and don't follow the markets daily, how have the various main indices performed year to date?
Yeah, hi Andrew, and many thanks for having me back on your channel. So actually, the US market has actually been okay. So far year to date. We're nearly at the end of the first quarter. The broad market index is up about 5%, and by that I'm referring to the S&P 500. Within that, there has been a bit of a bifurcation. So growth in 2020, which did, as you mentioned, extremely well in 2020. It's taken a little bit of a back seat so far year to date. So it's basically flat up, very, very modestly, less than 1% or so year to date.
Yeah.
But it's really value. There's actually up about 11%, and also some small caps. About 11% as well on a year-to-date basis. So there has been this little preference more towards cyclical exposure, whether that's through value or through small cap, to the detriment of growth so far year-to-date.
Right. What do you believe to be potentially, obviously, the major headwinds to US equities this year? And then obviously flipping that on its head, where do you believe the opportunities present themselves for a potential further leg up in market performance?
Yeah, it's interesting actually that both of these are connected. I'd say the biggest headwind is really about interest rate expectations.
Right.
And I know something that you've been following pretty closely. It's expectations around inflation. So I'd say those are really the two sort of factors which I guess stand in the way of further multiple expansion in the US market, and maybe sort of causes I guess a period of sort of pause and reflection. As I guess fundamentals catch up with where these multiples had got to in 2020.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of tailwind, the flip side of that expectations around inflation is really the U.S. economy is going to be growing extraordinarily quickly during 2021. They've just literally doled out about $400 billion in fiscal stimulus right now to the general population, and so you are going to see a period of time where GDP in the U.S. is going to be arguably up to like 6%, and this economy is not designed to grow, at a 6% real GDP rate. So that is going to have some knock-on effects on inflation expectations, and the fear, I guess, would be whether those expectations kind of overshoot the reality.
Yeah. And looking obviously at the different strategies that you've got at T Rowe Price, how are you positioning your portfolios? Are there certain names that are coming back on the radar because of valuations, or are there certain sectors that are coming to the fore?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, as much as we can, we are as fully exposed to a reopening of the economy as we possibly can be in growth. And so that's been a position we've had in place since the fourth quarter of 2020, as we knew there was this pathway back to like some sense of normal. We have exposure in companies like Global Payment Networks, which is if you go to a restaurant and you pay with a debit card, that it runs that kind of point of sale software. And I guess what we haven't been doing for the last 6 months, we haven't been getting to restaurants and those kinds of things. So that kind of pick up an activity. It's our largest overweight in the strategy today. Really trying to get exposure to that reopening, and also, I guess, thinking about other areas. We're still very bullish about digital advertising, and we think the big pickup you saw in e-commerce in 2020 is going to be followed by a pickup in digital advertising in 2021. So some of the names we hold in that area, we think are poised, really, really well for 2021.
And then finally, to round up, it seemed the absolutely we've seen continued bifurcation, yin and yang almost within the markets, with growth now into value. But I suppose that the question that I hear being asked all the time is the fortunes of big tech, and big tech seems to be very, very popular with retail investors. Understandably so. I'd suggest it's probably more accessible than a lot of companies available. Do you believe that the heights that we saw in big tech, the heights in the stock price in big tech that we saw at the back end of 2020, is that it? Or are we looking at a period possible of consolidation and then further movement, even though the economy is opening up with cyclical stocks being at the forefront?
Yeah, I think you've seen some of that sort of enthusiasm come out of the valuations of some of those stocks already. So you don't have to look at, I guess, the poster child for this, like Tesla has gone from like $900 down to $600. Zoom video, which obviously we're all familiar with now, that's come down, I guess, from like sort of $600 to like $300. And so those price adjustments have happened. And I guess and it causes us to go maybe back to your previous question in terms of, are there companies that we're willing to sort of have another look at as valuation is pulled back? If we think the secular drivers are still there and are still relevant and still intact, then absolutely we'll be going back to some of those companies to sort of reassess to see whether we should be getting clients exposed to those stocks at this point in time.
Yeah, so perhaps an interesting entry point. Who knows? Only time will tell. Julian, once again, it's absolutely fantastic to see you. You take care, and I'm sure that we'll speak soon.
Great. Thanks a lot, Andrew. Thanks a lot. Thank you.